We are now live.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Thursday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. Glad to be here and glad to have you along. We've been trying to connect with each other and the community, particularly now during the age of COVID-19, telling ourselves, reassuring ourselves, explaining our situation to ourselves, but advising us that there's every reason to be hopeful, to be positive, and to feel confident in our ability and our capability to both respond and demonstrate resilience and to come through the crisis that's affecting us all in ways that show that we are strong and in ways that strengthen us at the same time. You all know I'm a veteran, and what I've said on this program and others is that I fault myself for not having been the strongest advocate. I have forgotten sometimes to keep reminding other people in our community that military service is a good thing, can be a good thing, and that it has been a pathway for growth and development for ourselves and our parents, grandparents for generations. And that it seems that in the last generation, as the country questioned the military strategies of the American power, our community, like others, like the counterculture, got a little bit disinterested and a little bit sidetracked. But I think that through it all, people are rediscovering the value, the benefit, the integrity, and the genuine sincerity that Americans, that human beings bring to the service of community and service of the country. So my job in my mind now is to continue to elevate awareness, appreciation for men and women who serve our country, and to remind myself and to remind you that the military career is an option that's a good one. And it's a way of service that can bring personal fulfillment and opportunity, let alone the benefits that our community and our country have experienced in things like the GI Bill. Wealth creation in the country primarily is a product of owning a house. And what put most Americans in homeownership was the GI Bill. So GI Bill for home ownership, GI Bill for starting businesses, GI Bill for educational benefits, wonderful things. We simply have to make sure we know that those are within our reach and that they are for us. We need to be intent in using these strategies to build community, to build wealth, and the military service to build character for individuals. Well, I'm pleased to have some friends of mine who are soldiers. I call myself, I'm a sailor. I was a sailor. And so I don't think, I shouldn't say this, but I think these guys that are in the Army were real soldiers. So I'm glad to have on the channel two guys who I call real soldiers, Brother David Patterson and Brother David Rabb, Colonel David Rabb. And I don't know your rank, Brother Patterson, but I know you both have been career military leaders, and you both were in the life-saving business in the medical corps. Also on the call is my friend and leader in the community, our queen, Dr. Breveda Garrett Akinsanya. Dr. B, how you doing today? And you got your microphone off there, so I know you hear me, but I want you to jump in the conversation whenever you're ready. Let me start by setting this up with a conversation with you, Colonel Rabb. You and I did some interviews last year. We did a television show that was quite good, but we wanted to talk about the question of moral injury, and you introduced that concept to me. And I don't want to go deeply into that right now, but I want to revisit how you and I connected and why this conversation is a movement from that source, that beginning.
Okay. Well, first, thank you for inviting me and David to this conversation. David and I have been linked together for years, and we'll talk more about that as we move forward. David and I was in Iraq as well as Afghanistan. Okay, and God is good because we served together, and that in both theaters. So we got to know each other But let me switch to moral injury. What that is, moral injury is a wound to the soul, and a wound to the soul is an invisible injury, right? That is as deadly, or can be as deadly, as a gunshot, right? If you don't know about it, and it bleeds, and you don't know what to do about. In the military, we say stop the bleeding. You got to first stop the bleeding. In terms of taking care of people, you got to stop the bleeding. Well, I believe that there are people who are bleeding, either morally, spiritually, psychologically, and we as a society cannot or do not recognize the injury. And it comes out in ways that we don't know how to talk about it. It comes out in ways that sometimes people will adopt a behavior to express it. And so we need to, just get smart on what this thing called moral injury is. Now, I have an experience with it because and God is good, I took the U.S. Army to court when I was on active duty, because I said, I have a moral injury. And a lot of people said, what's that? What are you talking about? We never heard anything like that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what you know. And actually, now that I'm bleeding, I don't care. I'm just telling you that I'm in pain. I'm suffering. And it's an invisible wound, right? And we can go deeper into this, but I don't want to move in that direction at this point. But the thing is that there are people that I see, because I'm now smart on it, that have moral injuries and they don't know it. And not only that they don't know it, the family doesn't know, and the community doesn't know, right? And go for it. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Are you mic'd up there?
Yeah, I had my mic on mute just to keep the bandwidth wide, but this is the great beginning, Colonel Rabb. I called you Colonel Rabb, and let me take a minute to ask you to give the elevator speech about your rise in the ranks, because you started off as an enlisted man, I believe, and left and came back and rose to the rank of colonel. That's significant. Give us the 2-minute version of that career path for you.
Cool. I started off in the Marine Corps right here, right? So I'm a Marine first, and then I'm an Army second, right? But I'm Marine first because the Marines raised me. I went in the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old, right? And they taught me what right looked like. They disciplined me mentally, physically, all that, right? And I came out within 2.5 years as a Sergeant E5, right? And after I experienced that, I was on competition squad, and I was all this, and I was prepared, mostly in my mind. I knew that I could do anything, right? I could do all things through Christ that strengthens me. Mm-hmm. An added bonus, but I knew I could do things. My biggest challenge has been to not only acknowledge my greatness, what God has made, because God doesn't make junk, right, Dr. B? So.
Amen.
Yeah, you hear it. There you go. Good to see you. And so I did well in the military. I did well as a Marine, but I decided to go to college. I'd leave the Marine Corps And I did. And I went into the Army Reserves. And that was a blessing for me because they too put their ink on me in terms of shaping me, developing me as an officer, as a gentleman, as a person who could think outside the box and all that. And I have not came back into that box. That can be a challenge, Dr. B, for me, because I'm way out there, right? Because of how I've been trained to think. Just like Dave Patterson, who you will hear from, have been trained to think. And it can be, as the title of this program is, it can be a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. It can be a double-edged sword, especially as an African American that has have the skill set or this knowledge and can see through and do things that most people think that it's an anomaly. And it's like, no, we can do this. Hey, no. Anyway, bottom line, I was in the military altogether for 41 years. I have 2 Bronze Stars, should have a Purple Heart, don't have a Purple Heart yet, Y-E-T. Mm-hmm. And does race matter? Hey, Dave, does race matter in the military?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, yes, race does matter.
Yeah.
And we need to be very clear that if you go into the military, if you're in the military, you're going to be challenged just like everybody else is challenged and dealing with complexity as well as diversity, equality, and inclusion.
Colonel Rep, what was your job in the Army? What did you do, your profession?
I was a 73 Alpha in the Army Reserves, and that was a clinical social worker. But at first I was a Marine, as I said, in 0311, or in the Army, what do they call it, Dave? Dave, he's also in the Army in terms of military. I think they call him a Bang Bang, right? 11 Bravo, 11 Bang Bang, right? Yeah. But that's infantry. Mm-hmm. And so I did my time, and I gradually I got the experience, I got the training, I got deployed a couple of times. Mm-hmm. But the best thing for me was that there were a lot of good people that I met on my time in the service.
I'm going to come back to you and talk more about that time in the service. Let me turn to Brother David Patterson, and I have the bio you sent me, Brother Patterson, a war veteran of 37 years who served in the Army, but he says he also served in the Army of the Lord. And he said, given the opportunity to be in the capacity of leadership, you also recognize that you are in discipleship, that you've learned both to lead and to follow as a servant leader. And upon your official retirement from the military, your new assignment is one of leading and supporting and sharing knowledge and wisdom that you've gathered over the years as a soldier, and that your formal education consists of a BA in business management, a master in psychology, and that presently you are a PhD candidate in organizational leadership. Your objectives, your daily objectives, include educating, motivating, elevating one person at a time, and your skills center on leadership, communication, teamwork, and personal development, with the objective of allowing other people to repeat that process, to keep bringing future leaders to lead the next generation. Presently, you are the recruitment director for Good Father Only and coach for Emily, I think it is EMI. And you'll describe what those are. Encourage Me, I Am Young, that's what it means. Mm-hmm. A youth program designed to help adolescent and teenagers prepare for leadership. So, brother, thank you for being here, first of all. Thank you for your service. Brother Colonel Rapp, thank you for your service as well. Brother David, good afternoon, man.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to be a part of this conversation, as you would call it.
Yeah. And you're also a broadcaster as well, communicator. So
yeah.
Tell me about that first.
I have a internet radio program called Spirit of a Soldier, where we take the time to share the knowledge and wisdom of God's word. I classify myself based on the Holy Spirit as that I'm a teacher. So I try to share that knowledge in order that we get a little deeper. Most people operate from the, if you will, the iceberg. They see everything above the water, but the message that God wants us to have is much deeper. We got to go under the water. So I try to dig a little deeper to pass that wisdom on. So it doesn't be so superficial, but it has an in-depth meaning, because it's all about putting it into the heart. So we live according to that operation that God gives us, which is to meet his assignment or operate out of his will. The show has been moving pretty good. I've been doing it now for about a year, and it's been moving pretty good. It's progressing across the country, and it's given me the opportunity to meet different people in order to be able to share this knowledge, because God said we have to go to the ends of the world. And this, as David mentioned, we did that. We went to the ends of the world, from one continent to another, to go and fight for our country, for the freedom, because we know that it's not free. But in that, as I said earlier, now I'm doing the same thing, because we still know that the salvation is free, but it still comes with a cost. Christ had to die for that, and we become the beneficiaries of it. So trying to get the new message out that, to me, is more pertinent than the freedom we have in our physical stature right now.
And so the message that's most pertinent, say that in a nutshell,
is that we need to be saved. Salvation is what it's about. And salvation, not just from the standpoint that we have eternal existence, but we need to know how to live today while we walk the earth. And that salvation, to me, is about letting people know that first we have to save our minds. That's why the word tells us, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind. See, we, as David was talking about moral injury, we've been sold a bill of goods for a long time. As Satan is very good deceiver. And that's put us in a bad position. When we see, now we talk about race, when we see our own race continue to sabotage ourselves, that is because we have been conditioned a certain way to operate out of limitations. And there's no reason for that when people paved the way in the past for us to be past all that limitation. So to me, it's very pertinent that we teach salvation, not just for the sake of Christ, which is significant because nobody knows the day or the hour, but teach salvation on how to protect yourself, preserve yourself, move yourself in the direction that God called you to go in and the person he called you to be. And that is not, if you will, not preached enough, for lack of other term. It's not promoted enough. We do things more from the superficial way, cars, clothes, people, places, and things. But what's in the heart is he talk about the wounds that we can't see. There's so many people, especially African-American men, who are suffering inside. And then if you tap in them being soldiers, they're suffering inside because they're lost. You know, the man say, I was blind, but now I see. Most of the people walking around with sight, but they got no vision. So trying to teach that to individuals, if you will, and not that I'm the know-all, because the Bible tells us, study, show thyself approved, the right divide the word of truth. We need to study as individuals, but it's my job, as I feel, what my calling is, my next assignment is to share the knowledge that I have. And then someone will come along and cultivate that knowledge, water that knowledge, because mine is just one piece of it. Somebody else add a piece like you're doing right now. We're getting the message out here. Then if they have ears to hear, and we're talking spiritual ears, and that intuitive ear, then we can start pulling people out of that limitation, because that's what's wrong with us today. We are very limited, and there's no reason for us to be that. This is the most knowledgeable period of history ever, where you could push a button and everybody can access anything and everything. Not like the days when if we pushed the button, it was dropping a dime in there, and you might get a phone call. You know, and if you didn't have many dimes, you wasn't gonna talk long. Here
right.
we're talking right now all over the world, but this is why I said we would do greater works, because we could go all over the world and still be in our home. Mm-hmm. So, as you say, what's pertinent is getting that knowledge out there. Mm-hmm. That's saving knowledge.
This is wonderful. I'm Al McFarlane. This is a Thursday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. We're live on Facebook, and we may be streaming to YouTube. If we're not, we'll be getting to YouTube later on. But if you're checking this out on Facebook, like us and share it. Start a watch party. Let people know that this conversation is going on. It's an important conversation, and we want you to be part of the conversation as well. And as David Patterson was just saying, this technology is amazing. I refer to this, I read a book, it had to do with the concept of Gaia, I think, and the Gaia prophecy. And I'm doing my shorthand on it. So I'm probably not going to do it justice. What I remember about the concept was that around this time, the earth would grow a new skin, and this new skin would connect everything that was living on the earth. And it seems to me that this technology is like a new skin where we can connect with any other sentient or human being around the planet, and with the snap of a finger, pushing the button, as you say. The other thing that comes to my mind as you both Davids were speaking was this idea of Ezekiel, the prophet, being sent to the valley of dry bones, and raising the question, can these bones live again? Can these dry bones live again? And following the commandment, commanding those bones to rise up and to form a new human being. And I've been saying this to myself and others, that genealogy in part and technology in part are tools that will allow us to reconnect the body of these shattered and disturbed and dismembered bones. Then my brother, the philosopher teacher Mahmoud Al-Qadi, talked about the word remembering, and we are casual about that word. Oh, I remember. Oh, I forgot. He said, no. Think about what has been dismembered, dry bones in the valley, and think about remembering, reattaching. What if we remember the body of who we are and become new again? So Dr. B, I'm just throwing stuff out there, setting this conversation up. Jump in open your microphone, first of all, and I'm let you react and respond as you wish. And I have to step out for 1 second, so I'm gonna have you take my role for a quick minute here, and I'm gonna come right back. But open your microphone and unmute your mic, Dr. B.
Am I okay?
There you go. Now I got you. Yeah.
Woo, so, I'm telling you, I'm up here having church.
There we go. There you go.
Between the two Davids and you, boy, who can't get saved today?
There we go. I'm gonna come right back. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, what I'd like to say, from what I'm hearing, is that even though as soldiers in your physical body, that there is a mental and a spiritual war that is bigger than the war that you get sent to from the United States to defend our land. You're defending the spirits, not just of yourself, but of other Black people, of other people, period, but especially Black men and women. And when you step out and learn those skills of soldiering, what it really does, it seems to me, is evokes in you the warrior man and the warrior woman that already existed. It just sounds like the power from which you both talk is so deep and spiritual. And I have to say, there's a holiness to your voices when you speak about it, because I know that it didn't just come from you, that it came from our Creator through you as a vessel of His will. So as we celebrate right now and think about Memorial Day, and we think about all the shoulders on which we stand, especially the warrior men and women who were informally scribed wars, we also have to think about those grandmas on their knees, those mamas in the kitchen, those daddies in the yard, daddies in the factories, daddies in the cars, under the cars like mine, being a mechanic.
Mm.
We have to think about all those spiritual wars and the generations of warriors from which we rise. So the power of this day and the power of listening to the voice of my beautiful warrior brothers is that it supersedes that unelevated discussion about taking men to the battlefield, because you went to those battlefields, but you didn't go by yourself and you didn't come back by yourself. There's something holy and powerful about being an instrument of the Creator Himself. And to me, that's when we really rise to the greatness, because that is the Spirit of God in us. And each of us who have those skills uniquely for ourselves, that nobody can do what we do the way we do it.
Mm.
Nobody.
Mm.
And so when I listen to this discussion, I just hear the uniqueness and the shared power that you bring to the conversation and to our families and our communities, that it just exudes from you as powerful warrior brothers. And it makes me proud. And I think that we talk about our trauma and the things that we have to overcome, and we look into the eyes of a Black man who's been to a war where he's seen people killed and hurt and wounded and recover and not be recovered. You come out as a spiritual person. If you didn't go in that way, the way you survive is to come out that way.
Mm.
And that's the lesson I think we're talking about today when we're talking about memorializing people. We memorialize all the soldiers in our lives. Like I said, those prayer warriors at the church,
Amen.
those grandmas with calluses on their knees,
Uh-huh.
who prayed so much that they had them.
Mm.
So I think about that when I hear what we're talking about today, and the mental health that we have to claim, because we have a right to wellness. We have had that price paid over and over and over. First by our God on the cross, and also by those families, those shoulders that we stand on, the sacrificial love that we've experienced.
As I hear you, thank you very much. And the first thing that pops up for me is Harriet Tubman, right? Because you speak within that realm, right? To be a warrior, there's no, it's a spirit. There's no like really gender. Warring is a spirit.
Yeah.
A bullet can take you out as fast as anything. You know what I'm saying? So it's not so much, it goes, what this helps us do is like crack the model or crack the code in terms of you can go outside the limits of to imagine, right? More, quicker, faster, and all that. And that's great. That's great. But then at the same time, and I think I told David and I was talking earlier about this in terms of the title of this program here is being a warrior is like being it's a double-edged sword, right? It's a double-edged sword, and that I think of Octavia Butler. And Octavia Butler, who I love her writings, and she had a poem in one of her books, and it said something about change. She says, "What you touch, you change. What you change changes you.
Mm-hmm.
God is change. Yeah, God is change." And so this evolution, this this thing that we're experiencing right now, I think we were meant to. And the true warriors need to stand on up. This is the time where we need to stand up. and do what God has called us to do, right? And that takes courage.
Yep.
All right. That I mean, up front street, that takes courage. And we can talk more about, those values that we have learned on the way, the Marine Corps values, Army values, the Navy values, and all that. You bring that together. It's as you would say, it's kind of holy. I mean, it's a different a different plane that you can walk on and walk with.
That's right.
Let me jump in and go to David and ask David Patterson to talk about your actual career. You were a medic, I believe, right? In the Army?
I joined the military in 75, went in as a medic. I wanted to be an engineer because I got to high school at 16 and a half.
Lean in towards your microphone so I get a good
strong. Can you hear me better? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So I wanted to be an engineer, but at the time, that they didn't have an opening. So they said, well, you can be a medic. I said, well, okay, I'll be a medic. And obviously, you be a medic, they send you right to an infantry unit. So I did that for a while. Then I became Charlie, which is like an LPN, and then as well as an EMT. But mental health kind of drew me in, because I was seeing, the soldiers would always say, you should be a counselor because you know how to kind of soothe things over. And so I took that on and started out as a foxtrot back in the day. It was a mental health specialist, and then moved right into behavior. They call it golf, which was a behavioral health specialist, which is like a social worker. Went on to get my education, but unfortunately, I didn't think about the green, the gold in the interim because I thought I just wanted to be with the soldiers. I'm an outdoor guy, so I just wanted to soldier up. But I proceeded to go ahead on and I picked up my master's, and I was going to switch over, but they were telling me I would lose money and all this kind of stuff, time. So I just didn't bother with it because I was a little older by that time. And so me and David met around 2002. And we kind of hit it off. We met at a conference actually the first time. And then I found out that I was going to be deploying with him. So that worked out pretty good. And then we began to bond, and this was now joining a combat stress unit. The original unit I left before I joined him was a combat hospital unit, medical unit. So it was just a big team, about 300 personnel. And usually, like I said, I was running most of the medical areas, such as the troop medical clinics. From there,
come back into the microphone.
Sorry. When I met up with Dave, we were with a combat stress unit. It was the 785th, and I think that was his original unit. That unit allowed us to begin our mission, our personal mission, as well as the mission to go over and ensure that the soldiers would be able, as Dr. B said, have a good, solid foundation when it comes down to the mental health well-being. That was very challenging because, again, it's kind of humorous when you look at young people. You realize how young they are and how seasoned you are because the mindset is different. So it became our mission to build soldiers, to prepare them to be leaders. But you can see the youth and the kind of immaturity that exists because they had the mindset that it's going to go over here to this war zone, shoot these people down like they're playing video games and come on back home. Well, I had to reroute that thinking, if you will, because I said, you may think that you can go over here and play bang, bang, and then get up and go home, but war is serious. This is a life-death situation. And when you see the first individual lose the breath from their body and their eyes open, you will never forget those eyes. So this is not a joke. And those people over there, they live, breathe, and eat this activity. You're just doing this as a weekend soldier. And now you can really see what soldier up really means. So it was me and David's mission to ensure that we bring everybody back. But when we bring them back, they will look different. As he said, change. I remember telling the soldiers, when you return back home, if you go into a college area, they will know you will distinguish yourself because of the way you carry yourself, your attitude, your disposition. Will all be different. You will not be just when your mom said, oh, look at baby, he's home now. He looks so mature. No, you will have that maturity from the inside out. And then the things they see on the outside is just an outward representation of what's inside you, which we took the time to build soldiers. And we also took the time to build relationships. So my career allowed me, when we returned back from Iraq, I ended up running a troop medical clinic and also the mental health section for the mobilization and demobilization. So those soldiers going over and those soldiers returning back. That was interesting in itself. I did that for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, not to say this in any boastful way, but we had built a program that was so efficient. We could move 3,000 soldiers in less than 2 weeks. And moving with all, they would go through all the departments, and mental health was significant. So rank had no status, whether you were colonel, you were general, and most of the military personnel saw me because I was dealing with the civilian soldiers. Your social workers, people like Dr. B, what have you. They would be the supporting team. And I remember telling them as well, the social workers and doctors, what have you, I said, you will never have this golden opportunity like this in your civilian sector. So we got diversity. We meet a lot of people. I said, no, not like this. We have people from all over the world, from all walks of life, who now have joined the military sector, and they have the different levels of education, culture. You will see it all. In your world, not to disrespect it, in your world, you're only going to see a small population of this. In our world, you see all the population of this. So you will expand your ability to interact with others from a whole different perspective than you can even imagine. When I left to go to Afghanistan, which my great buddy Dave here gives me a call, because they didn't want to let me go, you see. And I get this call, and he say, ha, Dave, I guess you wonder what's up. I said, what's up? You roll it out again. I said, oh my goodness. I guess we roll it out. So, but in departure, the civilian soldiers, I like to call them, because like she said, Dr. B said, we all make a contribution. So I call them soldiers too. They have walked away with a wealth of knowledge and a skill set that would probably make them, second to none to anybody, because now their world had expanded because they were exposed to military personnel. And we had civilians, rank didn't matter. We had the Navy, the Marines, we had every status didn't come before its branch. We had them all come through. They all had to be cleared. And it was interesting. What you would see is the mental health dynamics that go on with units, with leaders, with subordinates. All these things allowed us to see how human behavior really operates. So it was an interesting flow for me and for my career. And I knew unfortunately, I got hurt in Afghanistan, so I was out for 2.5 years. I had 5 surgeries. And then Dave got hurt too. In fact, when we were rolling out, we got hit in the hangar. And Dave ended up actually bleeding from the ears and the nose. Didn't know he would have problems later, that he would end up having a stroke. So war, military, all those things are significant when you talk about the soldiering of an individual. And I think I wanted to inject this. I was thinking when Dr. B made a statement, and I just had this conversation at one of our meetings for Good Fathers Only, was that we give a lot of, and this is no disrespect to education, we give a lot of credence to educators, people with letters behind their names, whatever that may be, whether they're financially at a high status, but we don't take time to recognize the mothers, the fathers who work in the plant, who worked in the grocery store, who was the bag boy, who was the street sweeper. These are the ones that made sure that you become the doctor. So they're another type of soldier. They're soldiering to prepare soldiers to go out and do what they do. The Obamas and the people we see, the Al Sharptons, the Jesse Jacksons, the Martin Luther, there was these people who ensured that you would have that opportunity to step up on that ladder. So these are the soldiers too, but we don't give credence to that. And this is why children today get lost in the external things that they think are so important. As the word would say, the cares of the world. We got to be this, we got to look this way, have these things. But we forget about, as she said, those that were on their knees praying. We forget about those who were on their knees scrubbing. We forget about those who were on their knees picking up a boat because they just dropped it off the assembly line. We forget about those soldiers. So in bringing us all together, my career was propelled because of those who laid the foundation. And then you have leaders like David, who believe in building and preparing and developing soldiers to be soldiers within themselves, because he mentioned the word courage. See, courage is not the absence of fear. It's going into the midst of the fear that you're concerned about, because you have enough faith to go forward, because like David went up to the giant, he knew that God was with him and he had the right armor on to go forward. And this is what's significant when you have leaders like David who move through the ranks to get up to the higher ranks. And now I have to say this, I might not like this. I'm really not a race conscious person. I don't do race, creed, or color, race or gender. I do the human spirit. Because when you put anybody in the incinerator, we all look the same. It's the great equalizer. But what's more important is what's inside the individual. That's what I center on. Because at the end of the day, I don't take nothing from my Caucasian and other ethnic groups. But again, we know that if you had a family member and he was a criminal and you had 5 of you, we don't want to be clumped with that brother who went to crime and say, all y'all are alike, which we know that we've heard this in the past when they look at one black young man, all black men are this way. Well, that's a disservice. And the only thing that is about division. See, Satan wants to kill, steal, and destroy, and want to keep us divided. So I acknowledge that a Caucasian brother may do me a disservice, but also acknowledge when my own brother do me a disservice, my own family may do me a disservice, but that's not because of their race or their gender. More so, those who are limited operate that way, but that's because they lack knowledge. And that's how we get destroyed, because the word said, my people destroyed because of lack of knowledge. If we have the right kind of knowledge to work with, get the knowledge and wisdom from God's guidance, then we don't operate in this division. And that's Satan's mission, to keep us divided. It's just like being in the household. You can get caught up in your relationship with your husband or wife, and y'all can say, well, you women are all this way. No, it's not because she's a woman. It's because the interaction that you guys are having, possibly from the lack of ability of communicating or sitting down and communicating, keeps you divided. And this is the thing that our mission was, to teach our soldiers not to be divided within yourself. You got to know yourself. You got to develop yourself. You got to prepare yourself. And you always got to preserve yourself. Selfishness, if it's centered around about everybody else, that's one thing. But being able to be self-sufficient is only about self-preservation. And that's what I believe the people of the past, when we look at Malcolms and the Martins and the Al Sharptons and the Harriet Tubman, even I saw her movie, she was talking about, hey, let's not forget where we come from. Let's not forget, it's about our own ability to preserve our lineage, to preserve our future. It's about preserving ourselves. But if you don't have the knowledge, you can't give the knowledge. And that's why it's significant for us to ensure that we get the knowledge out there.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Thursday edition of Conversations with Al McFarlane. On Thursdays, what we want to do is speak within culture, speak through culture, speak about culture. Speak about health, healing, art, theater. Speak about education, institutions, individuals. Speak about passion, about the whole that makes us the human beings that we are. I want to go back to Dr. B, and Dr. B. I stepped away because I felt underdressed with my two colleagues here. Their cover zones. I said, oh, I got this. And just so you guys know, this cover I'm wearing puts me in Dr. B's army. She's the commander-in-chief of Project Murua. And Project Murua is a boot camp that she creates and operates to teach parents how to be effective parents. And I had the pleasure of being one of her speakers in one of the commencement ceremonies. But she does marvelous, powerful, empowering work, teaching people how to become themselves with accountability, responsibility, with authority, and with love, from a place of knowledge, as you mentioned, Brother Patterson, a place with knowledge and power that's based on that, and confidence. And it's a confidence that comes from within. So let me say who she is. She's a licensed clinical psychologist with over 30 years in experience in that field. She's a writer. She presents, she consults extensively about diversity, about developmental psychology, about multiculturalism, severe psychopathology, about childhood abuse and trauma, sexual assault, about community and domestic violence, and she consults about African American mental health. She believes, and she'll tell you that she believes that everyone has a right to wellness and should be able to use strategies that promote humor, hard work, experiential learning, and resilience. And she's been a leader in the field. I have used her services, so I've learned to recognize that Al McFarlane needs help. And when Al McFarlane needs help, he calls up Dr. B, and she schedules me with one of her professionals to help me go from point A to point B. And I'm pleased that number one, the resources there, that the learning opportunity is there, the developing and the helping and the confirming and the reassuring tools come from this relationship. I'm pleased that I'm able to do business with another business that her company, Brakens Consulting, is. And I'm also pleased that I'm able to talk about this in a way to encourage our people, Black people. We need to look at the question of what mental health is and disabuse ourselves of the notion that it can't be me, or, it's somebody else, or that I'm okay. I'm a Superman, because I'm not. I'm a human being, and I'm as frail as every other human being, potentially as strong as any other human being, but I'm all of that. I'm not any part less or I'm not, well, I can't think of the words I want to say right now, but you get the drift of my conversation. Yep. So with that, Dr. B, jump in again, and the beauty of this conversation is that we're just having a conversation, talking about how we are relating to each other.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, Alan. I am very proud of Project Marua and having you as a member of Project Marua, because you're not just a dad, you're a granddad, and you're a father to many around the city, and people who don't even have dads look up to you. And when we're talking about heroes and warriors, I was thinking about you, because of the work you're doing in our community, you're giving people who have felt voiceless voice. Even though we often don't remember that we have a voice, you always are there to remind us that we have a voice in our unique lived experiences, and that you elevate that voice and turn the volume up on it, so that even if you feel small and puny, suddenly after hanging around you for a hot minute, people get large. They get to feel large. And so Vernier Price has that book on the 4 types of people that change. And one of them is called multiplier. Mm-hmm. So brother, you're a multiplier. And that's what we need to be in our community. Warriors who multiply and give that space to our children and to our communities and to our own institutions. And to me, that's probably the harder part for us, is that somehow we've been pushed into value sets that don't support our elevation in the community and in the world. And those values are things like me-ness, not we-ness. Mm-hmm. We have that same, I am because we are.
Yes.
But what happens in our communities is that more and more we push the I am, and we don't remember the we are. So part of being a warrior spirit is fighting that social pressure that says, look out for yourself. So now we have a president, we have a government that is purporting to care about us, but it's one that is headed by a plethora of problems around people who are looking out for themselves. So that's the role model that we see. And in Project Marua, we teach parents that you model and you teach. You teach and you model. Even when you're not even intentionally modeling some behavior, somebody's watching what you do, but also what you don't do.
That's right. That's right.
And sometimes you need to speak up. They see you with your mouth shut when mess is going on. And sometimes what you don't do is you don't take that extra beer or the drugs that somebody might offer you. And they see, she could have said yes, but she didn't. So all of us have those individual spaces where we get to be empowered. We get to use that already existing deity and divineness in us that has been implanted to us by our Creator. We have that power as African people to live out this concept called consubstantiation. And that means all living things are connected. So when I see people, I say my brother, my sister, my cousin, their children are my children. And one of the things that happens is in our society now we're getting busted up so that other people's kids are other people's kids. You know, they're baby kids, they're not my kids. And so when we have that kind of mentality, that the children can't be saved, the community can't be saved, our future can't be saved. So what I want to say in terms of our warrior spirit and that double-edged sword that we're talking about is that our power can be a blessing and a curse.
Yes. Oh,
right?
yeah.
And we can use that power for good or we can use it for ill. We can use it for we or we can use it for me. And when we choose as a community and as individuals to put the collective wellness of ourselves, our families, and our communities in front of our own, what we find is we have a sacrificial love that is not just acknowledged, it is magnified, and it teaches our children and our community that we are existing only in the context of each other. Marua in Swahili means respect.
Ooh.
And the Swahili language has 26 words for respect. One is fear, one of it is esteem, but the word Marua encapsulates the highest level of respect. All other forms of respect fall under Marua because Marua is clothed with the idea of self-determination, Kujichagulia. It's filled with Imani, faith. It's even filled with one called Busara. And Busara is practical wisdom or common sense.
That's
we can
right.
get all the book learning we can, but you sit at the feet of somebody with a second or third grade education, like some of us have, and you begin to realize that what you don't know, what you don't know is what what they're teaching you. And they have more knowledge in their little finger than you even thought you had with all your PhDs, your JDs, your all those D's.
Right.
I'm
That's
just
right.
saying,
That's right.
it really is important in our culture that we value all types of knowledge.
Amen.
It's critical that we value lived experience. It's critical that we recognize that that experience has value to educating us in the future. Just like that Sankofa bird flies forward but looks back because you can't forget where you came from, or else you're gonna mess up your GPS system. You know, so the key, and I say GPS is God is putting us straight. Right? You don't want to mess up your GPS system. I'm just telling you.
that.
So
Good.
when we talk about it, we
All right.
really have to understand we have healing, we are healers, and
That's
we have to share that power.
This has been a wonderful conversation. Unfortunately, we're at the end of the program. It goes so quickly, but this is the beginning. We're going to be doing this kind of thing every Thursday, and as often as I can, I'll reach out to all of you to come back with each other or with different people, just to have this conversation go forward. And my intent, my desire, my hope and expectation is that people will like this conversation. It'll touch their hearts and their minds and their souls, and they will feel healed by the words that we are sharing and by the stories that we are telling. That they'll feel direction and inspiration, and that they will get instruction, know how to do this and do that based on something that you told them, David Patterson, or that you said, Colonel Rabb, or that Dr. B is sharing out of her storehouse of knowledge and wisdom. So I invite you, if you like this kind of conversation, to like it and to share it, and to be here again. We'll be here every Thursday talking about culture, talking about health and healing, talking about community at 1 o'clock on Thursdays here on Facebook Live. Hopefully we'll be also able to connect with you on YouTube and Instagram, and eventually on Twitter as well. We're learning the technology. we're using it, and we believe that we have an obligation and an opportunity to connect the entire planet, and we should do that. Let's do that exactly. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
David,
Appreciate it.
David, thank you. Dr. B,
Yeah.
thank you. Davion is reporting. Davion, thank you. And Kelvin Curria is engineering this show. Thanks to the team. And this is a great conversation. I appreciate all of you. Have a good day. We'll see you next time. Take
Happy
care.
Memorial Day, brother.
Thank you.
What
Thank
about
you,
it?
David, Dr. B, Dr. Staff.
Thank you.
All right. Dr. B, I love you. Hey,
Love you back, brother.
hey, Dr. B, just, you know what? You should invite David and me to come out there and speak to your students.
Oh, honey, I got more than that planned for y'all. Just
No.
another half of it. I'm just breaking you in easy.
Okay. All right. All right.
Trust me, Al knows me. I plan about you without you and then tell you about it later.
Okay. All right.
Tell you, all right, here's what you got to do.